Hey everybody, Sevuhl here, and today we're going to be doing a walkthrough for the basic pen testing room in TryHackMe. This is a machine that allows you to practice web app hacking and privilege escalation. So without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and hop right into it. As you can see, I've already deployed the box, so we are good to go. And there's only one task, so we don't have a lot at hand for us today. The first question here is deploy the machine and connect to our network. So that was a freebie there, and we're off to a good start. And our next question is to find the services exposed by the machine. So we can do that pretty easily by just running an Nmap Scan. I went ahead and cleared the directory after I completed the machine, so that way we can go through it together and I can make sure I explain everything that I'm doing. So let's go ahead and make a Nmap directory first. That way we can save the output to a file folder and make sure that we kind of keep everything neat and organized. So now we can run our nmap command here. So we're going to use sc for default scripts, sv for enumerate all versions, and then we're going to output that to the nmap directory as open ports.txt, and then we're going to supply the IP address, which is 10.10.64.184. And while that is running, we can go ahead and actually head over to that IP address to see if we get anything out of that. Just going to copy that here and paste it. And we see that the site is actually undergoing maintenance, and it asks us to please check back later. However, if we view the page source here, we see a comment that was left that says check our dev note section if you need to know what to work on. So in order to find that, we can actually run a GoBuster command. So let's go ahead and get another tab going and head over to our directory for that. And we can go ahead and run GoBuster real quick. We're going to need to supply the URL, which is 10.10.64.184, and then a word list. And we're just going to use dirtbuster's directory 2.3 small. So word list dirtbuster directory 2.3 small.txt, and then we'll bump the threads up to 40, and we should get some feedback pretty quickly, and we do. So we see that there is a development directory which would match up with the dev note section as well. So let's go ahead and head there and see what we get out of that. We find two text files there, one for dev and then one for J. So let's go ahead and read this first one here, and it looks like it's just kind of like a little like a forum board or something for K and J here. It says, I've been messing with that strut stuff and it's pretty cool. I think it might be neat to host that on the server too. Haven't made any real web apps yet, but I have tried that example. You get to show off how it works. And it's using the REST version of the example. Oh, and right now I'm using version 2.5.12 because other versions were giving me trouble. And that was from K, and K also configured SMB, and then J patched in saying I got Apache set up. We'll put in our content later. So we get an idea of our, I'm going to call them our men in black users for right now, because all we get is the first initial K and J. And we have one more text file, which is the j.txt. And it is actually for J from K. It says, I've been auditing the contents of Etsy Shadow to make sure we don't have any weak credentials, and I was able to crack your hash really easily. You know our password policy, so please follow it. Change that password as soon as possible. So that gives us an idea that J is going to be our target for the initial foothold to get some access. So that gives us a little bit of something here, and let's see if our Nmap Scan is ready. And we can get out of that, and we see that it has finished. And we see a few ports here. We have port 22 with SSH. We knew we had the port 80 for HTTP. We have some SMB shares. We have an odd service running on 8009, and we have Apache Tomcat on 8080 here. So with that pretty much done for, we can go ahead and check out SMB and see if there's anything there for us as well. So let's clear this out. We have access to it later should we need it, and we'll use SMB client. We will list out the shares with the -L flag, and then we want to supply the IP address and then do -N so it doesn't prompt for a password. And we see a pretty interesting share called Anonymous. So let's go ahead and check that share out real quick. We're going to go ahead and add that to our list here, and then take out the -L flag because we don't want to list that. We want to actually access Anonymous, and we can list out that and find the staff.txt file. So let's go ahead and get that over to our local host, and we'll exit and clear, and then we will go ahead and cat out that staff.txt, and we see that it's actually an announcement out to the staff that says, please do not upload non-work related items to the share. I know it's all in fun, but this is how mistakes happen. This means you too, Jan, and it looks like it's from K. So we actually get to put some names to the initials that we had earlier, and now we know that the username is Jan and potentially K as well. So that should answer a few questions for us. And question number 3 is, what is the name of the hidden directory on the web server? Well, we used GoBuster for that and found development, which got us the 2 text files and led us to some information. And then question number 4 is, use brute forcing to find the username and password. And then number 5 is, what is the username? We know that we have Jan and we have K now. And Jan has a weak password, so we can go ahead and just put 2 and 2 together and know that we need to brute force Jan's password. So what are we going to brute force? Well, we know that we have SSH on port 22 through our Nmap Scan. So that would probably be our go-to way into the box. So we can go ahead and go to Hydra and set up a Hydra command to brute force SSH. So in order to do that, we're going to need to supply a username, and we know that we have Jan as a user. So we'll go ahead and put that in for that. We're going to supply -p flag so we can put a word list, a password word list in there, so that we can have something to supply for the password. And we're just going to use rocku, and then the protocol that we want to brute force, which is going to be SSH, and then the IP address. And now we should be able to hit enter, and it is going to test a few passwords, and we'll come right back when it's finished. Okay, and we're back, and as you can see, the password has been found. It is Armando for the Jan login username, so we can go ahead and copy that, and let's go ahead and add that to a text file here. So let's call it creds.txt. Let's go ahead and put that in front of it, and we will edit that, and it is Armando, so we can save that. And now we have the credentials to SSH into the machine. So let's go ahead and SSH as Jan onto our target here. So SSH Jan at 10.10.64.184. And yes, we want to connect. We are sure. And the password is Armando. And as you can see, it is authenticated successfully. So we now have access to the machine, which we're able to answer a few questions with that. So what is the password? It is Armando. And then what service do we use to access the server? That is SSH. And now we need to enumerate the machines to find any vectors for privilege escalation. You could pretty much go through all your basic enumeration steps on a Linux machine, except you'll find out that it actually is a little bit easier than expected. So if we actually just go back into the root of the home directory here, we'll find K's folder, which we have access to, so we can actually go into that folder, and we'll list the contents there, and we find a good bit of files. One that looks pretty interesting is the pass.back file, and we know that we don't have permissions for that. We can even test that by trying to cat it out and see that permissions are denied. However, we see that the SSH folder, we actually have read and executable rights to that folder. So that's actually really interesting. We can actually check that out here. We'll clear and then change directories into that folder. And we'll list the contents there, and we can see the SSH keys that were created by K. And let's go ahead and cat the pub key out real quick. And it looks like K left themselves a message saying, I don't have to type a long password anymore. So we know that, you know, they are probably following the password policy for the server. And we also have the ability to cat out the ID RSA, the private key as well. So let's go ahead and cat that out. And with that done, we can actually copy this over to our local host and use John to turn it into a hash and then crack it. So let's go ahead and copy that. We will create a new tab real quick and cd over to our directory. And let's make a directory called files, and we'll move creds.txt, the Hydra restore, and staff over to files. With that done, it's cleaned up a little bit for us, and let's create that ID RSA file and paste the contents there. We'll save it. And now we can use John. We'll actually use SSH to John to turn that file into a hash file so that we can crack it. So we can do that by doing sudo user share share John SSH to John, and then we need the file, which is IDRSA, and we're just gonna turn that into IDRSA.hash just to make it easy. So we'll do that. We'll supply the user password, and that is done. So now we have a hash file that we can use John against, and or use John against this hash file to crack it for us. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll just sudo John. We'll supply the word list, which is going to be rocku again. So user share word list rocku.txt, and then we want to crack the IDRSA.hash file. So that should run, and it shouldn't take too long. And as you can see, it already cracked it. The password is in fact beeswax. And now that we have that password, what's interesting about this is that we also have executable rights from here. So we can actually SSH from this shell that we have with Jan and SSH as K and pass the IDRSA key file over since we have the password. So let's go ahead and do that now. We can SSH, and we use -I in order to pass that key, and it is IDRSA, and we want to be K at 10.10.64.184. It's going to ask if we're sure that we want to connect, and we are, and the password is beeswax. And now we have escalated to K on the machine. So or I would say we have pivoted to K now on the machine. And if we print our working directory, we know that we are in the K home folder. We can now cat that .back file, and we see that the contents are here's a really strong password that follows the password policy, and then $2 signs, and we know that that is our final answer actually. So skipped a little bit. So what is the name of the user that you found? And that's K. And then if you have found another user, what can you do with this information? And that kind of leads us to finding the .ssh folder that has read and executable rights from Jan, and then we found the password, which is that very long string there. So what more could we do here? We could actually copy this, and we can also make a creds2.txt file and do K and copy that over and save that, and now we have K's credentials as well. And if we hop back over here, we can do a sudo-l, and it's going to ask for K's password. We can supply that, and we see that we can run all commands as root. So we can sudo su, and we are now root on the machine, which means that we have now rooted the entire box, and we are good to go. And we don't really have to do much else because that's it. So if you enjoy the machine, definitely let me know. If there's anything more I can elaborate on, also let me know that as well. Other than that, I appreciate you watching, and y'all have a great day. Goodbye.